Good evening, everyone. I'm Frank Novak, and this is Point of Reference. Tonight, we reveal what may be the best-kept secret, and not even in hiding, in plain sight. Anybody that has seen my guest invariably comments on his extraordinary talent and asks themselves why they haven't seen him earlier. But once having seen him entertain, they never forget him and always look forward to the next time they can catch his new act. I'm talking about the multi-talented entertainer known as Bobby G, and we are very happy to have him here this evening to share with us his history and possibly making you part of his future audience. You know, Paul Anka may have written My Way, and Frank Sinatra may have sung My Way, but here's a guy that actually did it his way. Welcome to the program, Bobby G. Welcome, Bobby.
Thank you, Frank. Nice to be here.
You know, this is when I took a look at your bio and I saw your video clips, which we're going to be entertained with today. We've got about 3 video clips to roll in for the limited time we have. But I'll tell you something. I was very, very impressed because of the different things that you are able to do and for how long you've been able to do them. Give us a little bit of background history as to how you started.
Started in 1974 at the age of 12. Believe it or not, my dad was a local band leader, and I started working with him as a singer and a drummer, doing the functions and the weddings and the private parties and all that type of good stuff. And I actually wanted to do it when I was 10, but Mom, no way, you're too young for that. So they made me wait a little bit longer. I was relentless, and by age 12, my father said, okay, we'll break him into the business. So they bought me a tuxedo, and we started doing all the functions, and that's how the whole thing kind of.
So you were how old when you had your first tuxedo?
Oh, 12.
Wow, you were James Bond like early on, huh?
Something like that, yeah.
You know, and you started playing with your dad on his gigs that he was out there because he had an orchestra, correct?
Right. He had a 4-piece group that he worked, and my dad did it professionally for over 50 years. But he did it part-time, mostly weekends. And when I was a kid, you know, early 60s, he was working with a big band, playing around the New England area, different ballrooms and that type of thing. And then when he wasn't doing that, he had his own group locally. So he was a very talented trumpet player and a singer and a band leader, pianist.
You know, the interesting thing is, in that type of business, there's no 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. Right. There's, you know, give us an idea of like what a schedule can be for an entertainer, especially in the beginning, in the early days, because nobody is on a time clock, I guess. It's just,
well,
you're all over
like
the
I
place.
said, with my dad, they had day jobs. They were doing it weekends, but somebody like me, it's changed through the years, maybe because of the style of music that we're doing. Now I'll go into a restaurant, I'll work, say, from 7 to 10 in the evening.
Okay.
But years ago, it was 8 to 12, it was 9 to 1. So I was always on a night schedule. Even then, you know, I was a night owl, so to speak.
And you were with your father's band for a certain period of time, and then it was in, I guess, in your 20s, you decided to go out on your own, full-time?
Well, what had happened is I started with Dad when I was about 12. When I was about 15, a local entertainment agent called, and he was putting a group together that he was booking different local wedding bands, GB wedding type bands. And I left my dad's group, and I went with him with a group. And I was the kid in the band. I was about 15, and all the guys in the band were maybe college age. So every weekend we were working all over the place, different places, in Woburn, and you know, you might be in South Boston one night, and Woburn the next night, and something more local around here the following weekend. So I wasn't doing clubs. I was doing weddings and functions, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. So then when I got into my late teens, maybe around 19, 20 years old, I was working with a duo and doing that type of thing. And I went back with my dad in my 20s, probably 22, 23, 24, those years. And I spent about another 5 or 6 years with his group doing the country clubs and that type of thing. So it was a great experience working with those wonderful musicians.
Being able to work with your father in the family business, so to speak. You know, it just makes me wonder, a lot of people love music, and they love singing, and they love entertaining as, let's say, a personal hobby for themselves. You do it as a business. That's your career, and that's been your career for several decades. But what do you do for fun as a hobby?
I don't do too much. It kind of consumes my whole life. I always kid with my wife. I say I eat, sleep, and sing. There's not much of a.
I saw that quote somewhere.
You saw
yeah,
that
that's
somewhere,
right.
yeah. And it's tough because what you do in the day, everything you're going to do at night, you have to. You know you're going on at night, so you have to watch what you're doing during the day. You're saving all your energy for the evening. So you're kind of getting ready and getting equipment ready or whatever you have to do because you know you're going on that night. So I don't really get up and play a round of golf or anything like that. I would never make a 7 a.m. Tee time. That wouldn't be me.
You seem to be the quintessential person that fits the guideline of find something that you like to do, enjoy doing it, and figure out a way to get paid for it.
Right.
And that's what you're doing.
I'm trying, to make a living at this. It's not easy. It's very, very competitive, a competitive business, and it's tough. But I'm lucky that I'm still at it after all these years. Full time, I didn't go full time till I was about 29, and I remember mentioning that to my dad, and he said, "Sit down. We need to talk." And he advised me against it. He told me how difficult it was going to be, and he was right. Looking back, he said, "When you do it full time, and this is what pays the bills, you're going to take this very seriously."
Yeah.
All of a sudden, it's not a part-time thing or a hobby or anything like that. And he was right. Everything he told me was right. Of course, I didn't listen. And but 25 years later, here I am. And
well, as it turns out, one of the things before we move on, I'd like to see if Sarah in the control room would be kind enough, if she can go ahead and put up on the screen one of the roll-ins of the still picture we have of you, and I'm not sure what age you're at this time when you happen to be appearing. Here we are.
My
you happen to
goodness.
be appearing with your dad.
I'm about 12. I look about 9, but I'm 12 years old in this, 1974. And that's my dad directly over my left shoulder. He was singing a backup, a harmony thing to me, I guess. And there's a 4-piece group. Some of the musicians aren't in the photo, but there's 2 other guys in the back there.
Do you remember what the song was you were singing there?
Probably, remember that Tony Orlando hit Tie a Yellow Ribbon around the old oak? That was big then.
Yeah.
So we used to do that, and there was another one I would do, Save the Last Dance for Me.
Right.
And that was a big hit for, was it the Drifters, I think?
Yeah.
The Drifters had a hit with that. And there's a few of them I used to do, but I can, it's
Tell
so
me a little,
long ago.
I see on the stand it says, Bobby, this is your name.
Yeah, it's Bob Govro. The stand was, my dad was Bob Sr., so the stand was used by my dad.
Okay.
But I'm standing in front of that. And
tell me the story of how he went from Bob Govro to Bobby G. That's I love that story.
We only started using Bobby G about 6 or 7 years ago. I was playing down on Route 1 in Saugus. And I was at the Continental restaurant down there. And it took me years to get on Route 1. So I finally get on Route 1. And I'm driving down the strip there, and I see my name in lights. It says, "Tonight, singer Bob Govro." And I thought, wow, if my dad's looking down from up above, he'd be proud. And I get in there, and it was about 20 minutes into the performance, and different people were questioning me. "That's your name in the sign. How do you pronounce that? And where are you from?" So there was a bartender there. He's probably still there. He's been there forever. Frank, the bartender, the Continental. And he started calling me, "Hey, Bobby G. Bobby G, nice to see you." So I said to my wife, "Gee, they're calling me Bobby G." I'd go back 2 weeks later and, "Hey, Bobby G, nice to have you back." So it stuck, and they started calling me Bobby G. And at that same time, I was doing shows in the White Mountains. For years, I did shows at Indian Head in Lincoln, New Hampshire.
Sure.
And there was a problem there with my name, and they couldn't pronounce the name or spell the name. So at the time, the agent who was booking me there said, "Well, you should have switched to Bobby G 20 years ago. It would have made things a lot simpler." So we decided to switch everything over about 7 years ago. But whenever somebody comes in and says Bob Govro, they must be local. They knew me from 25 years ago because
so they know your
everything's
history.
Bobby G.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
The fact is, when you say, when you first got a chance to play on Route 1, okay, that was a big deal, no? When you're playing on Route 1 in Massachusetts. I'm going way back now to the point where Jay Leno used to play Lenny's on the Turnpike.
Sure.
Which is not there anymore. But,
Right.
But that was well known at that time. That was maybe for Massachusetts and Route 1 in the Saugus area, that was like the Improv in New York or,
that whole
or the
strip
Purple
of-
Onion. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That sort of thing. So that was it. That's kind of you hit that step, that's okay. That's an added notch in your gun
Yeah, it was
to
a
be able
kick
to
for
move
me.
on.
It was something that I always wanted to do, and then to see my name, and that made it a little.
You know,
Even
you say with your style of music, and we're going to take a look at some of the factors that make you so multi-talented and multifaceted, and that is that you have the capacity for 3 different octaves. That's 3 different ranges. Am I right?
Well,
Or
I have a
correct me.
3-octave range with the falsetto.
Yeah.
So it kind of allows me to switch styles. Usually, but if people have never seen me before, I'll start with maybe a Sinatra tune or Tony Bennett or something like that. And when they think they have me pegged, oh, he's a Sinatra-style singer, then I'll switch to Frankie Valli.
Yeah.
Or Lou Christie.
Right,
or
with Lou
some of
Christie,
those things with the falsetto.
high voice, and people will
Right.
think if even the Bee Gees when the
Right, I do some of that as well.
with that type of stuff, because you do. We're going to show some clips that show you with a very high, like a soprano type of voice, or very low, and you're doing Louis Armstrong, and then your regular voice that happens to be in the middle. If we talk about styles, and you seem to think that your style, you are, shall we say, more of a classical style relative to being an entertainer rather than what you see in more mainstream entertainment today?
When people ask me what I do, I tell them old style Vegas.
Okay.
Probably the way it was years ago, maybe like a Wayne Newton type style, or the Rat Pack, Frank Sinatra, or
See,
something like that.
That registers with people because when you take into account, but that's still popular today, but I think it's bigger than a niche group insofar as that you've got Michael Bublé that people have compared you to, and you've also Harry Connick with the types of music that he happens to do. And there's the biggest difference that I immediately am able to pick out when I see people using that type of music versus maybe more contemporary music is that, forgive me, you and Michael Bublé and Harry Connick and Tony Bennett, you can hold a note,
Right.
okay, for a period of time where in a lot of today's singers and entertainers, they seem to be, I don't know what you call it, they seem to be somehow yodeling or something, I'm not trying to be disparaging, but I don't know how else to describe it.
It's a whole different style, really, I think, today. The way it used to be, it's a complete different thing. I will do, when I do shows, in fact, for instance, I'll do something like with a 1-hour show, I will do a Frankie Valli, and I'll say from the highs of Frankie Valli now to the lows of Billy Eckstine. And I'll go way down, and I'll do like, say like I Apologize, which was a big hit for Billy Eckstine. A lot of people don't even know who Billy Eckstine is today. It's, the older crowd would know that, it's some of the shows that I do. So I have to read the audience. What's the age group of the audience? I wouldn't go in with all 30-year-olds, and I wouldn't do Billy Eckstine because they would not know who that is.
Well,
so you have to read it.
You can't feel that badly, though, because there are some people today, if you go into an audience and you're going to say, this was a great tune, first done by the Beatles, and then somebody will lean over and say, if they're depending on who were the Beatles.
Right.
Okay, they don't know. But if I could ask Sarah to go ahead and do the first roll-in clip, or to get ready to go ahead and do that, and just let me know, that will be very helpful. Here we go.
Louis Armstrong. Well, little darling, this is Louis darling. Nice to have you back where you belong. You're looking swell, darling. I can tell, oh yeah, darling. You're still glowing, you're still growing, you're going strong. I feel the rope shipping, boop, boop, playing. When the band comes playing, one of your favorite songs, way back when, shipping, boop, 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 yeah. Golly gee, never have a little faith in me. Gonna darling, never go away, darling, never go away.
That's great.
Thank you.
You've got to explain to me exactly how do you spell that shoobity boo boom. How does that work?
I don't know where that came from. That just kind of came out. Sometimes I don't know. I won't even do it the same way twice. It'll come out live, and I'll do a different thing. And my wife Kathy, who goes to a lot of the, Kathy handles my booking and my schedules and everything, and she'll see most of the performances, and she'll say, "Boy, you did that a little different."
Really?
So she notices it from time to time.
Because it's not an immediate copy of one thing to the other. You're changing it. know,
Right.
for yourself.
Right.
You know, also when you were starting out and you went out on your own, you remark about sometimes how when you first got into it and there were some days you didn't know almost which town you were playing because you were doing one thing at this time, then you were getting into the bus and going to another state doing this one, and then going from after that show to someplace else.
Well, I never really did what you're referring to is the Glenn Miller Orchestra, and I did that when I was 29. I had the opportunity to perform with them down
You
in
performed with the Glenn Miller Orchestra
Right.
in New Orleans.
In New Orleans, right. It's actually in Metairie, Louisiana, right outside there, a place called the Landmark Hotel. And they flew me down there. And they don't give you much information before you go down. They send a plane ticket, and
By the seat of the pants?
you get there, and then they go over the schedule and everything. And I remember I was there 2 hours or something, and then one of the road managers mentioned something about hit and runs, and I said, well, what's that? I was 29 years old at the time. And they said, well, we have 2 or 3 of those this week. We don't sleep in a hotel room on a hit and run night. We'll do the gig 8 to midnight, and then we board the bus, and then depending on where they are the next night, they drive all night long. So you're in a bus, not in a sleeper bus, but like a Greyhound bus with a seat.
Yeah,
So you're sitting in the seat,
yeah.
trying to sleep, and you've got all the clothes in the window, so you really can't see out the window. And I took a good look at that down there, and I said, I'm not sure this is what I'm looking to do, you know? And
Wow.
so
I can
I was down there.
imagine that, yeah.
A lot of people come and go. They don't stay because of the road life. You hear those stories with musicians. So I was down there for a few days. I did one performance with the band. I was down there, I think, 3 days, and I flew back. It was a great experience, but, you know, I never regretted to this day not staying with it. People will ask me, you know, you look back, should you have stayed a week or 2 or a month? I knew when I was there, this was not for me.
Well, you know,
But it was a great opportunity.
but what confirmed that for you is also the fact that that was not going to put you on the track to any large degree of success because so many people older than you stayed with as little time as you did or not far from the same time you did.
Right.
That kept changing.
Right.
Because it was just a grueling thing. It sort of chewed you up. But the fact is, that's pretty impressive for the Glenn Miller Orchestra to call you down because that suggests right out of the gate that there isn't any kind of music that you can't do.
Thank you. I try. I mean, I don't sing opera. People will ask me that.
Okay.
Do you sing opera? I say I don't do opera, and I don't do like a hip hop type style. I don't touch that. I stay away from that.
Let's take a look at maybe if Sarah can key up the next video. We're going to see what one of your other styles and see what that
Okay.
looks like. So when Sarah says that's ready, we'll just see it on the screen. Here we go.
Can you come out tonight? Can you come out tonight? Tonight's was pouring. We got the black moon shines. We'll dance the night away. I'm gonna make you mine.
You know, when you take a look at that, that's great. That's Frankie Valli's version. That's Sherry.
Right, of course, the
You know,
Jersey
so
Boys are doing all those great songs now, touring the country and everything, but Frankie Valli, the Four Seasons.
Just minutes before, we found you singing in the Grand Canyon with Louis Armstrong, and now you're at the top of the mountain
Try to
with
cover
Frankie
all the-
Valli.
Try to cover all the styles. Frank.
And everywhere in between. You know, the fact is, you know, can you give us an indication? What's the most fun that you have when you're performing? Is it just that when you get in tune, in sync with the audience, and they're like one with you? That must be such an adrenaline rush for an entertainer.
It is. Of course, you live off the applause, like all entertainers do. What I get a kick out of is somebody who, like that clip you just showed of Frankie Valli,
Yep.
someone who has never seen me before, and I do that, and I find them watching. Is that really him?
Yeah.
Is that coming out of his mouth?
can
Is he
see
lip syncing, or is that? So I will catch that, and I will walk over towards them when I'm doing a show, and I will stop that in the middle, pull the mic back, and so you think it's easy, don't you? Or something, and that, wow, it really is you, you know? So I enjoy that. Someone who's never seen me, when they see me for the first time, that's what gives me you know, when they really enjoy it. And also, I think with different restaurants, and sometimes if you're performing in a restaurant, there'll be families in there. And when I have a 17-year-old girl come up and she hears me do The Lion Sleeps Tonight,
Right.
and she'll say to me, "That's amazing. How do you do that?" You know, you have the older people, the seniors, that's their style. But to have someone 17 or 18 years old come up and compliment you on what you're doing, that's a real kick for
Because
me.
where else are they going to hear it? They just heard it probably first from you.
Right. There's not too many people, I don't think, in this area doing the style of music that I'm doing. The Louis Armstrong with the trumpet, or the Billy Eckstein, or that type of stuff. There's not that much anymore that I know of.
That makes you unique insofar as that, you know, there are, what is normal for you, I would suggest, is probably very, very special for everybody else. As far as like what your lifestyle is, what you do, you love what you do, and people come to see you because they love seeing you do it. You know, when we take a look at, there was a quote by somebody, that very famous person that was one of the first million-seller record seller, and his name escapes me, and he gave you terrific accolade about being basically not untested, but an undiscovered major talent that maybe, you know, depending upon how anybody gets the breaks, you might be in a different place in comparison to some other people as well. Who was that guy?
The performer you're referring to is Peter Lemongello,
Okay.
which is, I believe he was the first singer to sell 1 million records on TV back in 1976, I believe.
Okay.
I think his album was called the Love 76 album back in those days. And he is now, I believe, in southern Florida somewhere, still performing.
Really?
And but he did very, very well. He was on the Tonight Show, I think, with the Johnny Carson Tonight Show. He was that, and he did the Copacabana, I believe, in New York, and all the big nightclubs around the country. So he did very well. And I happened to meet him one day on Facebook a few years ago, and I sent him something, and he gave me that quote.
That's
and
a
I
great
said,
quote.
"May I use that?" And he said, "Absolutely." So I'm very thankful to Peter Lemongello out there for that great quote.
That's
which is on the
terrific.
website.
As you finish saying that, I'd like to have Sarah just get ready to key up the last roll-in that we've got here that I think people would be very, very interested in being able to see.
So I cheerful and I gaily laugh to think they could go one and one. Yet today my love has flown away. I am without my now, laughing friends deride, tears I cannot hide. Oh, so I smile and say, when a lovely flame dies, smoke gets in your eyes. Smoke gets in your
That's a great. That shows a terrific amount of range, and of the videos
you.
we were able to go ahead and lift. We just picked those 3, and there are quite a few others as well. You know, I wanted to be able to say, you're not afraid of being able to take a step forward and try anything relative to the entertainment industry, and that being the case, you started at 12 with your father. You went and you played with the big band down in New Orleans with Glenn Miller. That's got, you know, world recognition with that orchestra. And then you also tell us about your stint in the movie with your co-stars Matt Damon, Ben Affleck, and Brendan Fraser. That's
Funny
gonna.
story. That was called School Ties. Now, I believe that was Matt Damon's first movie, although they don't say that when I hear that on TV. They say another one was it Good Will Hunting or something?
That was the first big one, I guess.
But this is what made him. And I remember speaking to Matt Damon when this was
Yeah.
his first. So we shot that down in Worcester Academy. I got a phone call to be in the band for that. The local musicians union called me and said, "Would you like to be in a movie?" And I said, "Well, not really. I'm leaving for Glenn Miller in about 6 weeks," and that was on my mind.
Yeah.
And they said, "No, that's 6 weeks away. You'll 2 or 3 days from the movie, it'll be over." I said, "Okay." So we filmed at Worcester Academy in Worcester, Mass, and we went up to do the dance scene. So I was going to be the drummer in the band in the dance scene for the movie. So I went in there, and they said, "Be on the set at 7 a.m." Okay. So we all showed up there, and there was like 5 or 6 of us, and they had like a couple of makeshift like barber chairs with these hairstylists, and they come out with the buzzers, the clippers. And I said, "What's that?" And they said, "Everybody gets a haircut." Now, I've always worn my hair very short, so I didn't know what they were going to do. I'm getting ready to go to Glenn Miller. They're going to give me a crew cut or something. I didn't know what they were going to do.
Yeah.
So I said, "Oh, no, thank you." I said, and they said, "Everybody must have a haircut." So I said, "No, thank you." So they called in the music director, John Oliver, who had come in from Hollywood, an older gentleman, and he said, "What's the problem?" When he explained it, he looked at me, he said, "Oh, you're going with the Glenn Miller band. I was a sax player with, I think it was Artie Shaw, back years ago,
Yeah.
So we kind of hit it off. So he said, "If you're a singer, why do they have you on the drums?" I said, "Well, I did both." No, we're going to put you up front. You're going to be the singer." So that's how I got in the dance scene up front as
What a great
the
story.
singer. So that's the truth. That's what happened. They put somebody else in the back on the drums.
So hey, see now
Nice memories,
now we hear the backstory on that.
Yeah.
But so you've done with the different clubs you've played. You've been on motion pictures. Somebody can go ahead and key that up on Netflix or
Right.
even on YouTube, and they can see Bobby G.
It was just on
in
TV
action.
about a month ago. We pulled
Really?
it up on one late night on one of the channels, on
Yeah.
the movie channels, and it was funny to see that. And
You must
Yeah.
be thrilled when you see that sort of thing. Do people sometimes stop you and say, if they, "You look familiar," or just how do
sometimes I get that.
Yeah?
Sometimes, you're walking through a local supermarket or something. Somebody will stop you, and it's usually the same question. "So where were you singing these days?" I get that quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, but
Well, as we
Used to
say, I'll tell you something. When I take a look at what some of the other people have said, about your act, and this is, when not trying to blow smoke, but I'm just going to say you certainly are one of the best singers I've heard in many years. One quote, "Bob's singing is heartfelt and moving. Versatility is amazing, from falsetto to crooning." We've got here, it's a class act, and you're referred to as the real deal. Wow, it just doesn't get any better than that, Bobby
I'm very
G.
lucky. I'm very wonderful quotes, and I'm very thankful, grateful that all those nice things that they say about me.
Well, as we said in our introduction, Paul Anka may have written it and Frank Sinatra may have sung it, but you actually did do it your way.
Thank you.
That being the case, and when we say in the opening in the introduction, we try to suggest that not only have you shared your history with us, but maybe the people out there could be part of your future history or part of your future as far as being in the audience. Now this program will play, several times, but are there certain locations that people would look to go to find out where you happen to be playing?
Locally, I work at a place called the Fireside Restaurant in Methuen, right here in Mass, Methuen.
Sure.
Every Sunday night, I do an oldies dance night there. So we have a lot of people that come in. So I do a little less singing there. They're there to dance, and I give them what they want. They want to come in, and they want to do the line dance and the Cupid Shuffle, and we play all that. And I do some singing there. And that's every Sunday from 7 to 10 right on Pelham Street right here in Methuen, the Fireside Restaurant.
I'll tell you, you aim to please. Please tell me, we've just got about 30 seconds left. Tell me about the America's Got Talent thing where people actually saw you on YouTube. I need to have you tell that story quickly. I don't want to close the show.
Can I
without
mention
that.
real quick, too,
Sure.
Hampton Beach coming
Sure.
up. I've got a show, one in June and one in July. They can go to my Facebook page and find the
Excellent.
exact dates.
Great. Tell me about
America's Got Talent. I got a call 4 years ago in February 2014 from Hollywood. Someone saw the clip you played, the Frankie Valli Sherry clip, and said, "Wow, we would like to see that in person. We're coming to Boston." I had a private audition at the Westin Boston Waterfront Hotel in Boston. And I went in, and there must have been 200 people in the lobby. I cut the line, so I had a private audition scheduled because they called me. And we went in the back, and the producer said, I've seen the clips, but we want to hear it live, the falsetto, a cappella, no music, no piano, no background track, no microphone. The microphone was on the camera. So I did The Lion Sleeps Tonight. And we also did, and I said, now let's change gears, and let's, if Tony Bennett were here, and I did, I Left My Heart in San Francisco. Right. So they said to me, that's amazing how you can switch styles like that. You know, what are you looking to do? And I said, maybe before I die, I've been at this for many years, I said, maybe a casino in Atlantic City or something like that, Foxwood, or opening act in the lounge or something along. Yeah. So they said to me, if everybody will hear within 3 months if they make the next level in the show. If you don't hear in 2 weeks, call back to the gentleman in Hollywood. 2 weeks later, my wife, who handles all the booking in the phone with Kathy, called. And they said, heard all great things about Bobby G in Boston, but we have a lot of singers, as you can imagine, around the country. And we never heard another word, but great experience. I'm glad I did it. And, you know, chalk it up
to... That's a terrific story.
To life, you know.
And you never know.
Yeah, you never know.
That phone can still ring.
That's right.
Bobby G, thanks very, very much for being here with us today and sharing not only your story, your history, and your talent as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I loved it.
It's been great.
Enjoyed
it's been great. We hope that this program has been a point of reference for you, too. And until next time, my name is Frank Novak. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks, Bobby.